Alright, trigger. So a trigger is a volume. We're going to use just a regular brush, the block tool that we normally use. So, but it creates a volume of space that when touched can trigger an event. And so first let's make the box. So I'm going to use my block tool, okay, the one that we always use, this block right here. And I'm just going to make it off to the side of this map over here somewhere. Like right here maybe. Let me find that block real quick. There it is. Alright, let me move it into the playable space. Okay, so I used my block tool, I drew out the shape, and I press enter to create it, just like I would with any other block. Now, it has to have a special texture on it. So the texture is called trigger. So if you go to your texture tool and you browse and you type in trigger, you're going to see this little orange texture here. We're going to apply that to all the sides. Now you can also create the block with the trigger texture on it to start, which is, faster, but it's up to you. So, but nonetheless, all 6 sides have to be covered with this trigger texture. So it becomes kind of this transparent, and it's got the word trigger on it. All right? Now, next step is we've got the block right here. We're going to take our selection tool. We're going to click on it. Okay, so we've got it highlighted here. And in the 2-dimensional view, this view right here, you're going to right click on it and select tie to entity. So what that does is it takes it from being a block to an entity like a character or a piece of furniture or anything like that. Okay, so we're going to select tie to entity. And for the class, we're going to select trigger. And we're going to go with trigger once. So the most common ones you use are going to be trigger multiple and trigger once. So trigger multiple simply means that you can trigger this multiple times. Trigger once means that this trigger will only fire one time, the first time you touch it. So I'm going to select trigger once, click apply. Okay. So now I have this right here. So this is the trigger. I generally like to name them. So I'll name this trigger demo, but you can call it whatever you want. All right. Starts disabled, no. Let's see anything under flags. So under flags, we can kind of decide who can trigger this. Currently, we'll just leave it where it's at clients, which would be us, the players. Now, the main thing is these right here, this output. So the output is what the trigger does when you touch it. So it fires an output to another object. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I am going to put in, just for example, a light. Okay, just a generic point light right here. And I'm going to make the color red, just so it's really obvious where the light's at. Okay, and then I'm going to name this light. So I'm going to name it red test light. Okay, so I've got this red light sitting right here, and under flags I'm going to go ahead and set it to initially dark, just to, so it's off. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this trigger tell this light to turn on, and just to kind of demonstrate how the outputs work. And then as we go through the lessons, I'll show you different ways to manipulate the outputs. But this is a pretty good demonstration of just how the trigger fires to another object. So I'm going to go back to the trigger. I'm just going to double click it. And I'm going to go to its output tab. So there's no outputs. So I'm going to click add, output named. So we're going to say like either on start touch or on trigger. Either one is going to be fine. I'm going to say on start touch. So what that means is that the player touches this box right here. The target entity named. So this is who the trigger box is going to talk to. So we want to talk to this light right here. So under target entity named, I'm going to find the name of it. And what do we call that thing? Red light test? Yeah. Okay. So we find the name of the entity we want to speak to. Then via this input. So this means like, what do you want to do with it once you talk to it? So when we drop it down, this is context sensitive to whatever this is. So if this were a door, all these options would be things that doors can do. Since this is a light, all the options that are going to drop down here are relevant to a light. So if we scroll down, we should see a turn on. We're going to click apply. Close that. Now, if we go back to the light and look at it, you're going to notice under the inputs, there's an input coming from the trigger. So we know that these two guys are talking to each other. Okay. So let's go ahead and compile this and see if it worked. And I wish I had some background music for you. Waiting. There we go. Alright, so we got to get past my intro here. Alright, there's some cannons and firing and stuff, so the somewhere over here. There it is. Okay. So that light came on, it's right there. Okay. So that is how to make a trigger. So for the same thing for the ENV shake and the explosion, same thing. You create a trigger volume and you fire an output to each of those devices, and it will output to them and make them explode or whatever you want them to do.